Prime Minister Narendra Modi triggered a major talking point when this week he attacked Thomas Macaulay, the 19th century British historian and politician who's widely seen to have pushed English language education in India with his desire, as he said, to create a class of persons Indian in blood and color, but English in tastes, in opinion, in morals and intellect. Prime Minister Modi says Macaulay created a colonial mindset of slavery that India needs to shed now, while others say English education in fact brought modern values to an ancient civilization. Modi versus Macaulay, English education, boon or bane, that's our big talking point and our big debate today. Joining me now, William Dalrymple, historian, celebrated best-selling author, also podcaster and a self-professed Indophile. And with him, Amish Tripathi, best-selling author, also who's been with the Nehru Center in the past. Appreciate both of you joining us. Remember, I spoke to William earlier, so I'm going to first come to William Dalrymple and begin by asking you, William, I want to look at the speech the Prime Minister made closely. Mr. Modi suggested it is time that India got rid of its colonial mindset. To quote him, free ourselves from the mindset of slavery that Macaulay imposed on India. Do you believe Thomas Macaulay imposed a slavery mindset on India in the 19th century? Or did he actually pave the way for some kind of modernity through English education?
So I should come straight up and say my family were Macaulay's great enemies. James Prinsep, who translated Kharoshti and translated all the Ashoka pillars, and his brother Henry Prinsep, who were my great-great-uncles, they had public debates against Macaulay in Calcutta Town Hall. And they were the Orientalists who wanted to have education in Indian languages. So they were, in a sense, on Prime Minister Modi's sides. But my perspective, for all it's worth, as a foreigner coming to live here, is that I was always amazed how little of Britain's colonial shadow remained, even when I first arrived 40 years ago. In the 1980s, I arrived in a country which seemed to have shed most of its colonial shadow, and the British in India already in the 1980s felt as distant as the Romans in Britain. I've always felt the opposite. I've always felt that India has always been very pragmatic about what it retains and what it has shed. It's shed everything that's useless to it, and it's clung on to the things that are useful. And English is useful. I mean, English is just obviously the international language, and in a sense, it's one of India's great advantages over China that there's so many people here fluent in the language which is the main international language today. But people revert into Hindi in conversation when it suits them. So it seems to me you've got the best of both worlds.
That's interesting. We've had the best of both worlds, but William Dalrymple, there'll be those that will argue that Macaulay ended up creating this Indian elite that still exists according to some, and that's what the Prime Minister was referring to, that the masses, the teeming masses of India must find their voice in Indian society, not just the elites. Many of the masses speak regional language. Why should those who know and speak English well exercise this dominance? Why should this small English-speaking elite class dominate India?
I think one of the great things about India throughout history has been its multilingualism. Many people here speak many languages, and that's an incredible asset to be able to speak English when you're dealing with clients or going to education abroad is a terrific thing. But you should also have pride in your own language and your own literature, and I think India's done that pretty well. I mean, most people in the top tier of society speak English as their first language, but also have one or more languages they can back up on. I think we're right to emphasize that Indian languages and Indian literature are great things to be treasured. But I think that having the option of speaking English is obviously enormously helpful for business and for the country's prosperity. So I think to have both, as is so often the case, is the best of all worlds.
But in a way, William Dalrymple, aren't we seeing some kind of a tradition now from the old Nehruvian elite to the new Modi-led India? The Nehruvian elite spoke in English, and there will be those who will argue including the Prime Minister, that this led to some kind of an inferiority complex among those who couldn't speak the language. And now finally those who speak regional languages, Hindi in particular, are finally finding their voice. Do you really believe that a kind of inferiority complex was built in to our society in India by the Nehruvian elite, which is being shaken, dare I say, by the Modi elite?
Well, I think the new India is the India which is taking over every big business in America and doing, you know, terrifically well on the world stage, and these are the people who are leading India into its next phase. It's right, as you say, that people should not look down on regional languages, and they should celebrate regional languages and regional literature. You know, at the Jaipur Literature Festival, which I help direct, my wonderful colleague Namita Gokhale curates at least 40 languages each year. We make a point of celebrating all those different literatures, and that's absolutely right and proper. But it's also important that the elite and the educated elite are able to deal internationally and take over businesses around the world. It's not either or. It's not a question of one or the other. It should be both, and that's a great Indian strength.
But do you, William Dalrymple, as you travel around India as a self-professed Indophile, do you notice any fragments of the colonial mindset at all? The old boxwalas of Kolkata playing a game of golf at the Tollygunge, having a gin and tonic. Do you believe all of that is a thing of the past? Are you saying that they are now marginal and real India is very different, and in any case, it's a bit of an assimilation?
I would agree with that. Yes, I mean, even when I was first around in the 1980s, you know, there were a couple of these old clubs left where a fringe would hang out having gin and tonics on the veranda. But even in the 1980s, they were not the dominant world. The dominant world was, you know, people like Lalu Prasad Yadav in Bihar. There was already 30, 40 years ago, a whole new world of new Indias coming, which had the real power, and these guys were a fringe. I think one of the great joys and strengths of Indian democracy was how quickly that elite got replaced by democratic strength of other groups. But having an educated elite, which is multilingual and capable of dealing with abroad, as opposed to a cultural elite sitting in British clubs. Having the educated elite who are multilingual and running businesses in Bangalore and London and LA at the same time, that obviously is what we hope India will become: enormously rich, world dominant, and impressive, and performing at a top rank internationally.
And what is also true, and you reflect on many of these characters in your celebrated Empire podcast series, that it was actually, in a way, Thomas Macaulay's English focus that had led to European Enlightenment in some way coming to India, modern values that inspired the likes of Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru. They went to Britain, it shaped their intellectual thought, they brought it back and played a huge role in actually the freedom movement of this country.
Yes, I think exactly. I think you can underrate very badly how brilliant these guys were. Again, pragmatically using the best of what was then, you know, the cream of global education, but then using it for the benefit of India. I think the Nehruvian elite did what people do today. They're using their skill, their education, and their language abilities to make India the world-class #1 country, the best that it possibly can. So I wouldn't look down on the business elite and those who perform at this incredible international level at the very peak of their abilities, and you know, they are the people that are leading India into the future, running banks, running big multinational companies, taking over all these fortune companies all over the world, and we see them wherever we go. There are Indians running everything, so they should be celebrated, not denigrated, I'd say.
Just to quote what Prime Minister Modi said again, William, he said, Macaulay broke the back of our self-confidence, filled us with a sense of inferiority, threw our entire way of life into a dustbin in one stroke. That was when the belief took root that Indians must adopt foreign ways to achieve anything. The sense of pride was gradually weakened. Do you think the Prime Minister is exaggerating it, that this is more politics? And as you said at the very outset, India is actually an example of the best of both worlds, West and East?
Exactly that. I mean, I think Macaulay was appalling, and my family fought very strongly against what he tried to do. But I don't think he broke India. India gained its independence. The Raj proper from 1858 to 1947 lasted a mere 90 years, which is a blink in the eye of Indian history. And has been long forgotten. This is a strong, independent country. It's incredibly self-confident, and Indians take what they need from that, and there are things which they can take which are of advantage to them. But the idea that they're sort of cowering and beholden to some sort of old ghost of Macaulay seems to me very underrating the brilliance, resilience, and pragmatism of Indians.
You know, interestingly, I can also tell you that Ashish Nandi, the sociologist, once said that cricket is an Indian game accidentally invented by the English.
That is an example, and of course it was the Parsis who were the first to take it up, the most Anglophile of all the communities. But but again, it's now become very much an Indian game and dominated by India, not by Britain.
But in conclusion, what's the best thing India can still take from the British? What's the one thing you'd like the British to take from India? The one thing.
So I think the best thing they can take from Britain is the language, the English language, to have the ability to speak English as well as your own languages, plural, is a great asset in this world. As for what Britain can learn from India, I think Indian entrepreneurship, Indian business acumen, and the energy of South Asia is something that we look upon and admire.
Okay, we heard there from William Dalrymple earlier. Thank you very much, William. I want to now turn my attention to joining me live, Amish Tripathi, another best-selling author. Appreciate your joining us. Amish, you heard William Dalrymple actually say India has the best of both worlds. Given what, do you agree with that? That actually we are a rare example where we've combined the benefits of English language and also been strongly committed to our regional indigenous culture. So is this a false binary, a false debate, Modi versus Macaulay, more political than cultural?
Look, I mean, I'm not anti-English, obviously. I mean, we are speaking in English, and English is the language of modern science. But I am a Hindi bhashi as well. I'm completely comfortable in Hindi, my mother tongue, as I'm sure you are in Marathi, and all of us are in our own languages. But where I agree with the Prime Minister is it's not so much the language. It is the way we approach our land, the way we approach knowledge systems. Let me give you a few examples. Our education system is such that we put allopathic medicines, the allopathic medicine system, right at the top, and do not spend enough effort to scientifically research our Ayurvedic traditions. And I can tell you, I've been living in the UK. Many Westerners are getting into Ayurveda and the traditional wellness systems because they know that outside of emergencies, these traditional medicine systems probably lead to better medical outcomes, right? The allopathic medicine system in the US, they spend 11% of their GDP on medicine. You could argue their medical outcomes are actually not that good as compared to Europe. Now, that's one aspect. Second aspect, look at, I'm talking about practical stuff, huh? Not just at a theoretical cultural level. You'll notice in schools, they tell us that there are 4 seasons. That's what I was taught. My son is 16 years old. He was taught the same thing. Summer, autumn, winter, spring. And I'd asked in school, ma'am, monsoon kahan gaya? Our ancestors were very clear that monsoon is the key season. India actually has 6 seasons. Europe has 4 seasons. And the key season for us was monsoon. That's why the Sanskrit word for year, varsh, is based on Varsha. That's why the Sanskrit word for a nation, Varsham, it's Bharat Varsham, right, is again based on Varsha, rain. Our entire way of life was built around the monsoon. Our temple ponds, our lake systems, essentially South Asia, Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia, get all our annual supply of water within 2-3 months. Our entire way of life has to be built around how we manage that flood and dry season. Europe, etc., they don't have this because of our, westernized elite system. We don't build our cities for the Indian climate. We want to ape London. There's nothing to learn from London. They don't have the monsoons, right? So we should have lakes in our cities, as our ancient cities did. We should have temple ponds. We should have a Shramdan system. Think about another practical thing of a colonial deracinated elite. All our, our upcoming new cities, we're building glass wall buildings. Okay, glass wall buildings were invented in Western Europe and Northeast America, where there's a shortage of the sun. It makes sense there. Heating cost goes down. In India, there's an excess of the sun, not a shortage of the sun. When we build a glass wall building, we're essentially building a giant microwave oven. Why are Indian architects building this? क्योंकि सबको गोरा बनना है. Everyone wants to ape the West. This is the result of our colonized education system. And I'm talking about just practical matters.
So
Forget
you're
about
saying
the cultural impact.
You're saying Macaulay's education systems actually took us away from our traditional medicines, our long history of work in science, and almost made a generation look down in a way upon some of these ancient practices like Ayurveda. Is that what you're claiming? And therefore, that's
Absolutely.
the inheritance that we need to reclaim.
And we need to decolonize our education system so that we can do this, so that we have an elite which realizes they are not living in Europe, they are living in India. Again, I'm not anti the good things we can learn from the West. The West has been the most successful civilization of the last 3 centuries. There are many good things we can learn from them. And as our ancestors said, Ano Badraha Kritrovantu Vishwata, that let noble thoughts come to me from all directions. But we should not forget our roots, where I agree with what William said so beautifully, that this change is happening democratically, peacefully, slowly. And I agree with William completely on that. I also agree with William that there is no need to turn completely anti West. There are good things from the West. We should learn that. But let's learn our own stuff first.
No, but the truth of the matter is, it was in, today when you see, for example, India, a market leader in IT services, you see Indian engineers going across the world. A lot of that is the benefits we got from English education. And contrast us with a Japan or a China. We have a competitive advantage over these countries because we've created this large pool of English language. And for many Indians, English is aspirational today. Go across the country, everyone wants their children to learn English. Are you saying
But
that's
Rajdeep, I'm agreeing with you.
the result?
I'm not.
No, but is that no? Are you saying
I'm
that's
not
the result of this
anti-English.
slavery? No, you're saying you're not
I'm not
anti-English.
anti-English.
Then you are. What
And
are
I'm
you
not
exactly anti?
I'm not anti learning the good things from the Western way.
So what are
I
you
am
exactly
saying
anti?
let us not forget the good things from the Indian way as well. I just gave you 3 examples on
Yes, but have
medicine, on how our
yes.
architecture is decolonized, on how our cities do not take the monsoon system into account because we are also mentally colonized. There are many other things of this. Think of the way history is presented to us. We are still running the way the British Raj presented our history to us. Do you notice that the British colonial rule is not called the Christian invasion, but the Turkic colonial rule is called the Islamic invasion? Have you noticed that? This was a British formulation, a very mischievous formulation to convert what was an Indian foreigner fight into a Hindu Muslim fight, right? And we've carried on with this post 1947. Now, even Hindi film movies have added to the confusion. Many Indians think that, and you can't blame the Hindi filmmakers, they went to the same schools that we went to, but many Indians think Alauddin Khilji looked like Ranveer Singh or Akbar looked like Hrithik Roshan, which is not true, boss. To us, they would have looked Chinese, but they weren't Chinese. They were actually from Central Asia. They did not speak Urdu, despite what Bollywood movies tell you. Okay, Urdu is our language. They would have spoken Turkic or Persian. They were foreigners. What was, and KK Mohammed Saab, who's a brilliant archaeologist, he had said that Babur was a foreigner. What was being presented as a Hindu Muslim issue is actually an Indian foreigner issue. Do you know Chhatrapati Shivaji or Krishnadev Raya? When they fought these foreigners, they didn't use the term Muslim. They used the term Turushka, which is Sanskrit for Turks. They were clear. They were fighting foreigners. Now think of the cultural impact that the British formulation of our history textbooks has had till today, and we have still not decolonized it, right?
But
There are
you
so
make
many
a
things on
you
this.
make a you make a fair point on decolonization in a way of our history textbooks. But at the same time, Amish, there will be those who will argue that this process of colonization also unshackled many Indians. It, in a way, led eventually to the breakdown of the caste system, the kind of ideas of enlightenment, modern values, notions of equality. Do you believe, therefore, as I said, you can't throw out the baby with the bathwater by making it Modi versus Macaulay? Narendra Modi has his a point of view, Macaulay or Macaulay Putra have their point of view, and the twain can meet. It's not as if they are mutually antagonistic.
Rajdeep, you're kind of reinforcing my point. I'm not anti the good things of the West. I'm repeating that once again. And I've not read Prime Minister Modi's speech. But if he said that we need to decolonize our education system and reconnect the educated elite Indians to Indian roots, yes, of course, that is a very good thing. It'll
He
make our
said there's a
country a lot
slavery
better.
mindset. He seemed to suggest there's a slavery mindset involved here, that this has enslaved us. Is that a bit of an exaggeration? Is that politics being
I
played
would
out?
agree with that too. I would agree with that too. Do you know that our obsession with fair skin is again a recent construct? This fair and lovely, this thing that fairness means more beauty, that is not a part of our ancient way. Draupadi Ma, who was considered one of the most beautiful women ever, one of her names was Krishna. Krishna literally means dark skinned. All right. Lord Ram was dark skinned. Sundara Vigra Megha Sham. Right. And we weren't anti-white either. Lord Shiva was fair skinned. Right. Karpuragonam, Karnavataram. And so we weren't obsessed with skin color. Now we have forgotten this. This is an example of a colonized approach, right? The fact that if when Prime Minister Modi said that India had the oldest democratic structures, he was right. And I found many people opposing him, saying that no, Greece had older democracy. Not true. The Vaishali and the Vachi confederacy were a lot older, and they did not have slavery. The Greeks had slavery, right? Megasthenes, the Greek ambassador who'd come to India, recorded that India is the only land he came to which didn't have any slavery. We don't know all these things because we assume नहीं हमारे पास सबसे पहले कैसे हो सकता था वो तो यार यूरोपियन के पास ही हुआ होगा. This, if you ask me, is a slavery mentality. But I'm repeating once again, that doesn't mean you swing to the other extreme where you refuse to learn anything good from the West. That is silly as well. There are, look, artificial intelligence, AI has been invented by the West. Modern computer tech has been invented by the West. Of course, we should learn from that. Why shouldn't we? Goddess Saraswati can bless anyone in the world, and we should open our minds and learn from whoever Goddess Saraswati has blessed.
Very well put there, Amish, and I appreciate you joining me and taking the time off amidst writing another book. So thank you very much for joining me here on this debate. Amish Tripathi, William Dalrymple, you've had two fine voices joining us here.